Tim, hey, congratulations on Taurus.
Thanks, man.
So, like everyone else, I have to ask is where did the original idea came from for Taurus with you?
Sure. Well, I have a long time fascination with musicians and not just the music that comes out of them, but their lives, especially the ones who, just have like extreme talents, but at the same time struggle to kind of exist in the world as it is. People like Thelonious Monk, people like Kurt Cobain, people like Amy Winehouse, these people who are really just touched by God, but they just can't live on earth. It's a kind of a disaster of an existence. And so I've always I've always been a kind of affected by people who've died too soon, real talents that should just be blooming, but they get cut short. And that happens all the time in the music business. And the 27 Club has been around forever. So I was always interested in kind of documenting that in a way that's not as a documentary, but in the way that I do it as a filmmaker. I met Colson when we were shooting a Western out in Montana, and we really, you just hit it off with certain people. You don't know who you're going to hit it off with and who you're going to clash with. And Colson and I make an odd couple, but we immediately kind of found that we cared about the same things as artists. His scale was a different scale than mine, but the things that we wanted to explore and discover and kind of search for were the same. And so I said, listen, if you ever want to make a movie about a musician, that's basically you, but not you, let me make it. And he said, yeah, okay. And I went home and I wrote a script very quickly and sent it back to him. And it was a great blueprint for him. There are things he recognized in it. There are things he wanted to change about it, but there are things that we could engage in immediately. And I think it's so much more interesting having a real rock star play a version of himself rather than an actor playing a rock star, because there's this gray area that Taurus creates for the viewer that is hard to do when you're Bradley Cooper in A Star Is Born, because is it Colson? Is it Cole? Is it Machine Gun Kelly? Who is this character? Is he all three? And, that's where it came from.
Now tell me this, because we've done these type of movies before, okay? And there's plenty of documentaries out there that also did the same thing. So how did you want to distinguish your film from everybody else?
Well, first of all, I can only do what I kind of feel inside. And so every movie is different, and every piece of art is different if the artist is being true to themselves. So the first thing I didn't want it to be as a straight biopic, the type of movie that's more mainstream, like Walk the Line, which is a great movie, but it's not the same kind of thing that I'm talking about. I wanted to do something that was more stream of consciousness, something that starts rolling down a hill and never stops until it stops, and I enjoy the gray area between fact and fiction. And this movie is just completely chock full of that, where the more documentary aspects of it feed the fictional aspects of it, which feed the documentary action acts of it. So it has a real blend that I think is unique in movies. And then also I wanted to make an LA movie, not the kind of movie that the Doors or the Red Hot Chili Peppers would make, but a movie that felt like LA seen through my eyes. And those were the three things I wanted to do the most with the movie.
I think that was excellent. I was watching the film and faction fiction was blending together really well. I couldn't tell, what's fact, what's fiction, and how you guys, live through this entire process.
Right. Well, I think it's a testament to Colson's ability to do many things at once, to be Machine Gun Kelly and not to shy away from it, but to completely embody the character. Colson as a person is a great father and a great friend, and he's not this kind of mess that Cole is. So he was able to open himself up to the criticism that people would believe that he is Cole, that's him on screen, that's how he acts in real life. He was willing to take that risk to kind of explore that darker side of himself. And I think that's a real testament to his ability to perform at a high level.
Now, how do you direct? I know you worked with Colson before, but
Yeah.
you also brought in other musicians, who have very limited acting experience. How do you direct these folks blending in with real actors at the same time?
You get out of the way. The thing about non-actors, or people who aren't like, I call them non-actors, but is you can't ask them to be actors. You can't ask them to deliver lines the same way Maddie Hasson is going to do it, because they're just not, they're not actors. They're not at that level. And then they can become bad actors very quickly. So the most important thing is to let them be themselves, or versions of themselves, And then secondly is, you got to let the scene grow on its own. Colson really wanted authenticity. I wanted authenticity. I asked him, do you even want to meet Lil Tjay before, and talk about the film? He said, no, let's just meet on camera. So all I did was tell Lil Tjay, like, you're coming into a recording session, and maybe you'll freestyle a little bit, and then we'll go from there. And I left the room and let my DP take over, and let Colson take over, and let it be what it was. And that's this joy of kind of getting to know each other through music. And it's a joyful, joyful scene. So then we stop, we got that. And then I go to Lil Tjay and I say, okay, the next scene is this pizza guy is going to come in, and I give him the basic idea of it, but I don't tell him to read lines. I don't do it. Just at a certain point, you have to tell Colson, be a little bit more humble. Do it however you want to do. And then I get out of the way. So, you're dealing with super talented people. I mean, Lil Tjay is a great performer, and he caught on very quickly. And like I said, with Colson, there are times he needs you right there, and there are times he needs his space, and you just have to be aware of that. But certainly with the musicians, let the musicians be musicians, and don't try and, if you have a wild animal, don't put him in a cell, just let him be wild.
Did Colson bring in Naomi on board, or?
It was his suggestion. We were looking for women with incredible voices, but were not too famous. And he had worked with Naomi on multiple levels before, and he introduced us to her, and I just fell in love with her right away. And she was perfect, because she's right on the cusp. I mean, she's one of these people who could easily be the next big star, but she hadn't been there yet, and so there's a vulnerability to her, as well as an incredible artistry. And she was incredible. She wanted more direction, so you have to play it the way that she feels more comfortable, while Colson sometimes wants to be left alone. It's directing is kind of like parenting. You gotta know when to step in, and you gotta know when to not insert yourself. And Naomi was Colson's idea, and lifts the movie up.
Tell us about the original. I wanted to say original songs for your film.
Sure.
How was the process like trying to get that into a film like this?
Well, it started with just Colson and I exchanging songs that made us think of the movie. You know what I mean? Like I sent him a Cat Power song once. These kind of dark, sad songs, and then he would send me his version of that. And we kind of met in the middle on this song "Eyes on Fire" by Blue Foundation, and he's wanted to kind of make that the song. Like I had written into the script, there's a song, like I didn't write lyrics, I didn't do any of that. I just talked about the idea of developing this song along the way, but it was really up to Colson to do that. So he found these two notes the movie starts with, and just developed the song from there, and I didn't know where it was going to go. It really grew organically, and that's the beauty of working with someone like Colson, who's he's going to deliver something that's going to knock you out. And there's risk involved with that, because you don't know exactly what it is, but he and I were set on the same vibe, and that was the most important thing. Then when they made the song with Lil Tjay, they made that beat up in the studio. That was all there. That was all that then there, and it's magic.
That must have been amazing for you. It's almost like being a fly on the wall, and you watch how magic works.
Totally. I mean, it was a great thing to witness, and a great thing to be a part of. And, you know, even if it had been a total disaster and they had gotten in a fist fight, I would have been like, okay, that's interesting. How do we use this? You know, if you're open to it, then you can't lose. But luckily, you know, little Tjay came in and just was incredible, just the same as Colson.
I want to say your film has some amazing scenes, especially with the cinematography and direction. I mean, you know, having Colson out a window of a moving car, or flipping scenes upside down, or an argument in the sound booth. You're extremely creative, and that's a lot to put into one film.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I first of all, I think visually first always, you know, and to the fight with Megan behind the sound in the sound booth was one of the first images I came up with for the idea of the film. And I knew we were going to sit there and watch, because the world watches them in a fishbowl every day. They're in a fishbowl. They're on Us Weekly. We don't know anything about them. They're this celebrity couple. And so I wanted to visualize what that actually looked like. And then, you know, the world is turning upside down. I mean, it's all upside down to him. So I knew we had to execute the upside down shots in the beginning and the end, especially at the end. John Brawley, the cinematographer, fantastic creative person, but also an incredibly technically gifted cinematographer. So I knew that he was going to be able to, with the tide coming in and the crew like digging a ditch a moat to make sure that the crane doesn't get washed out to sea, and still get that upside down image. You know, I depended a lot on John and his expertise. And you know, John and Colson had their own relationship too, because the cinematographer and the actors, you know, have to have their own relationship that's separate from the director too. And that trust between them allowed Colson to open up even more as a performer. But I don't love shot reverse shot type movies. I love movies that you know, really, you don't know what shot is coming next. You just have to kind of sit in there and feel it.
You know, and I have to give kudos to you, because, you know, technically this is a indie project, not a big budget film, and you managed to pull everything off like a big budget film. And that's,
well, I appreciate that. Yeah, you don't want to make something that looks cheap, especially if you're making something about a global rock star. So, you know, I think what you do is you sacrifice maybe some things on scale, but you really dig in, and the producers were adamant, like, we've got to get the right house with the right view and the right pool. Like, you had to have that kind of that upscale but kind of coked out place. And so we were all, you know, you have to be all on the same page, and production designer, DP, producers, actor, director, we're all on the same page. We all wanted the same things. And when you have that momentum, then you can really make anything look good.
Most excellent. And one last thing before I go, I feel like Taurus is a cautionary tale, as we just witnessed last week with some, you know, another famous individual in the news. So tell us what lesson we should actually take out of your film.
Well, you know, I don't think it's necessarily a lesson, but you know, what I wanted to do was illustrate, just visually make you sit in the room with these people who shouldn't be dying, who should be living, who should be, you know, be able to create for 30 more years. And it's up to you to kind of sit there and see this tragedy take place, touching it, sitting on the same couch, riding in the same car, being at the same meetings, living that same life, and kind of feeling what they're feeling, and just trying to identify with that and let that sink in. It's not saying don't do this, don't do that. Just kind of see it for yourself and feel the tragedy. And it's because it's tragic. It's a loss.
Well said. Tim, thank you very much for your conversation. You know what? I can't wait till your next film.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for the interview.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Next time. Thank you.
All right.